The weather in the New York metropolitan area was very fall-like for a week, and it's about to start sucking even more if you like summer. As we know, in New York, we had a pretty significantly below average January. February was mildly above average. March was a bit more significantly above average, despite 3 significant cold snaps that occurred throughout the month. None of them, however, were able to accumulate into these serious cold waves, and we did not have a high below freezing, though it got closer in like 4 separate days. April was a touch below average, and May was a touch above average. And this is again only for the city center. June was also a touch below average, though parts of the metro area were above average throughout the month of June. Which I don't understand is that like areas on Long Island, specifically where I live too, can be a bit closer to the city, but because the city is normally supposed to be warmer, this would make us more above the average or less below the average than the city. You get my gist here. Then July became only our second on record to have a high of 80 plus every single day, and only our third month on record. That was about 2 degrees above average. August was about 3 degrees above average, which in the winter is something to scoff at. But in the summer, when temperatures get closer together throughout the averages, because that's just how summer is, at that point, this is significant. Our third hottest August on record. Newark and Islip saw their all-time hottest August. Now, Islip records don't go back super far, so, you know, they only go back to the 1980s and 1960s. I've seen conflicting sources on this, so that's not super impressive. What is more impressive is Newark, because records in Newark go back to the 1930s. Now, New York City goes back to 1869, but 1931 is still pretty far back. Newark has also been more so in like the heat waves than other areas of Long Island are. You see the people who are wearing heavier layers? I should have worn something heavier than just a light long sleeve shirt today. I had a sweatshirt, but I decided not to wear it. That was a mistake. Because it is cold. Because what happened in September was that initially we started off to a warm start. As a matter of fact, the New York City even managed to hit 90 on September 4th, which was the first time in like 3 or 4 years that the city hit 90 in September. We'll see when TypePad does their recap thing, which should be in the early days of October. So that's as far as, you know, September started off. It started off warm. But a driving rainstorm came in on the Tuesday after Labor Day. So after a warm Labor Day, it's very humid, very sultry. But temperatures, highs are dragged down to the mid-70s. We haven't seen highs drag down to the mid-70s since something like June 23rd by that point. We had highs in the upper 70s many times, but never in the mid-70s until this point since late June. So, following this, the city recovers, gets warmer again. Into the 8th, 9th, and 10th, the heat begins to build. Into the 11th, we have a rain threat, so that does drag down the temperature a bit. But the 12th and 13th, it gets very humid before the air clears on the 14th, and we cool off into the 15th and 16th. That's how September weather went this year. Which is not that far from 2021 until an event happened. Before this, though, the heat built back on the 17th, 18th, and 19th. So the 19th, it got to the mid-80s for probably the last time of the year, and potentially even into the 80s. I mean, I know that where I live specifically got into the 80s as recently as September 22nd, but the city only hit 75 that day. That's largely a result of the timing of the cold front. This cold front will be talked about a bit extensively throughout this video, because it was significant. This cold front, was significant. Because this was the pattern change I was talking about. But first, the 20th, I'm not sure if the city hit the 80s on this day or not. Hello.
In the next one.
So, oh my God. So I have to check that. Are we making a short highlighting whether or not that happened in the city? Because I know it happened where I live. But yeah, then Wednesday cooled off. Thursday had that front come in. However, it then kind of dove back down to the upper 50s by nightfall. The morning low was actually around 70. But obviously with a cold front, it's going to be, you're going to have your low in the PM, which happened. So September 16th is the first time the city managed to make it down to the 50s. Islip actually managed to achieve this in August when it briefly got cool in August. My location, this happened on the 2nd and then again on the 9th and on the 15th. But in the city, it doesn't happen until the 16th when it gets down to 57 degrees. High that day, 75. Islip hits 50. We do not. Where I live gets down to 52 on that day. But it was 55 by the morning bus stop already, so it wasn't any kind of cold like in the morning. I wasn't dealing with 52. I was dealing with 55. Or maybe 54. But what happened was that the 22nd, this front comes in, and the humidity in the air, it was erased. It was gone. Gone. And the storms weren't especially severe. The storms weren't especially severe, but it did trigger a strong cold front. The next day, the 23rd across the city, is quite a cold one. Dew points get down to the low 30s. The low temperature that day of 51, that was the coldest since the 10th of May. The high of 63 made it the coldest since the 8th of May. Now, my location, it was 6650, which was the coldest on both counts since May 25th. Actually, that's not true because there's a high of 66 on June 1st where I live. It was cold. It was 10 degrees below average. The first time we had a day 10 or more degrees below average, since it was 13 degrees below average on May 7th. It was really just too cold that day. And last year, we didn't see anything even begin to resemble that kind of cold until the 29th, 30th, and 1st, and it was brief. It also wasn't as windy. The city then hit the 40s, so did my location. The metro area hit the 40s with pretty deep wind chills on the 24th. So it got to 49 degrees. This is a stark contrast to the second latest time I hit the 50s to the 40s on record, which happened in 2021, where it did not hit the 40s until October 18th. So obviously there's a big difference. The 25th started off warm, but then isolated severe thunderstorms come in, and the further west you were, the more rain you got. The rain kind of died out over the island. However, it did help with the drought, and for the first time since mid-August, we are now seeing parts of Long Island now in only moderate drought, not just severe drought, but moderate drought is starting to appear, which isn't great, but is an improvement from what had been seen beforehand. Okay, it got less cold, thank God. Then what happened was that Monday was also warm. It got into the low to mid 70s on these days. Tuesday, temperatures declined a bit, and same for Wednesday. The low temperatures, these get back down to the mid 50s, but it becomes cloudy, becomes windy, becomes unpleasant grayness, and temperatures have continued to deteriorate into today. Highs are back in the mid 60s, but they're no longer under clear skies. They're now under cloudy skies, which makes a difference. The end of September's weather is so unseasonably cold, I feel like, that it's probably going to drag September 2022 to a below average month. In the beginning of September, I made a pretty accurate guess of saying that September would be warmer than June, but I don't think September could be 2 degrees above average anymore, given all that what's happened. I really don't think it's possible at this point. And October does not look promising, because the first day of the month appears to barely get into the 60s at all and be drowned in rain covered from Ian, which as of right now is not predicted to be a repeat of Ida, which thank God. Then the temperatures are going to decrease dramatically, go back into the 40s. We will have a warm-up where we briefly hit the 70s on October 6th, but then another cold front follows where temperatures are going to get down to, if everything goes according to plan, the low 40s on October 8th. The low 40s, with wind chills in the mid 30s. Those temperatures will be, if they come to fruition, the coldest in the city since April 28th, and even in the suburbs since May 1st. Wind chills also, again, coldest since April 28th. And it can continue to trend downwards. Keep in mind for the city too, they didn't hit the low 40s last year until early November. Now, where I live did manage to accomplish this on October 24th on an isolated cold day, which, believe me, in October when it was cold, isolated in 2021. Because New York City is the 6th warmest on record, and it was the warmest on record in Newark, New Jersey. But, I just wanted to get my feelings out there and describe to you some of the more annoying stuff I'm finding in the forecast, because I like the cold, but it's coming a bit too early. And Saturday, highs in the mid 50s, I don't know. Because those highs would be the coldest since April 19th. So, it's going to be a theme that we talk about. Coldest since X date. But the X date is going from June to May to April. Then eventually it'll continue to progress. Farther and farther back into the year. And eventually we'll have a day so cold, or we might not have this, but given the forecast, a day so cold that it'll be colder than any last winter, which for the city would require a temperature at less than 10 degrees, single digits. But I don't think I should really be depressing you about this right now. Now, before I finish this, I do want to squeeze some Ian stuff into this video. Hurricane Ian has made landfall in Isle of Palms, South Carolina. I actually went there a little over 2 months ago on one of my camp trips. And I remember I didn't like it. I still bought a shirt from there regardless, because I wanted one from the Carolinas. And they're pretty tropical cyclone prone. They're pretty tropical cyclone prone. They really are. Now, Ian made landfall there as a Category 1. We're already seeing hundreds of thousands of power outages in both Carolinas. Florida has had over 800,000 customers restored to their power, but still millions of people remain in the dark in Florida. And almost all of Hardee County was without power Like, there were, like, I think 40 customers with power at one point. Ian caused the bridge to collapse. Ian's impacts were pretty damn devastating across the areas that Ian struck. And, you know, let this be something like a learning experience. Because, you know, when Ian was forecasted to be like this, it was pretty much expected to be like this since the very beginning. And obviously Ian is going to bring devastating consequences no matter what, but I feel like this warning system helped save lives, but it could have gone even more. Right now there's conflicts about the death tolls, whether or not it's 23 or 33 people who have lost their lives. But we will see what the actual death toll is in the coming days and weeks. Okay.